Sure. I'll talk it out.
Yeah, let's just have a conversation.
Track 3.
Better not be fucking Dave Matthews Band.
Okay. Those of you who don't want to be a part of this can leave now.
Derek, please listen to me.
But if you choose to stay, which it seems like you guys are choosing,
Derek, please.
you understand and agree to the following terms and conditions.
Derek!
1.
Derek, this is the virus.
You hereby waive your right
Derek, please.
to your own personal bodily integrity.
This is not you.
2.
I'm a life.
Per the state versus Neville Reed, my colleague and I will not be held criminally liable for any felony or misdemeanor that you may be a victim of, including, but not limited to, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, mayhem, and first-degree murder. And 3, terms and conditions may change or be updated whenever the fuck I want! Consider yourselves notified.
What up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on Metal Town Radio Podcast, doing another episode here of basically I'm going to talk about the Marvel Universe. And just to let you know off the bat, I'm not a huge comic book fan. I grew up obviously in the 80s and watched a lot of the cartoons like Spider-Man, Silver Surfer, Fantastic Four, the Justice League, stuff like that. So I knew it on the surface, right? So a lot of this stuff I knew on the surface. Obviously, Tim Burton's Batman movie, knew that. And of course, some of the other stuff, the live action superhero films. I didn't watch much of the, well, of course, it's DC, but Batman, like, TV series and stuff. But Marvel, obviously, like Blade, Wesley Snipes, other films they've done in the past with the Marvel Universe that really, were like one-offs or whatever, I'd seen or whatever. But, obviously when Iron Man came out in 2008, I think, is when they were kind of really kicking off the multiverse or the universe for Marvel. And, I'm going to kind of go through because right now, a lot of back and forth about whether or not it's working or is it getting thin? Is it like starting to dilute itself? And is it getting worse? And really, for me, from a cinematic point of view, or even TV or whatever the series they have, I'm going to go through some of this stuff, but I'm kind of half and half, about 50-50 with it right now. Some of it I think is very bad, and some of it I think is pretty decent. Now, I will say this. There's some of the bullet points I have for why I think it's problematic right now with the Marvel Universe is basically this. And so I put down fatigue and oversaturation. So I think one of the things we're finding out right now is that for general audiences, such as myself, we're familiar with certain characters now. Even if there's some newer characters that get introduced, I think that unless they're interesting, we're probably not going to take much notice. And then in other cases where it's not as interesting, we kind of lose interest in like, who gives a shit? And so, but I do think there's just too much of it. So right now, Disney and Marvel are basically making a lot of films. And I'm going to kind of contradict myself here in a minute, but they're making a lot of films that people don't give a shit about, at least the general public. So you're trying to make money and generate interest, but you're really kind of catering to the minority in terms of like the super or diehard comic book fans. So that's problematic on that surface right there, because as a studio, you're going to want to get as many people into, their butts in the seats and get the theater finances, everything, admissions and all that stuff to get the money for this stuff, to make back what you put into those movies, which is generally a lot of money. But when you oversaturate it to the point that, like, you know, you get these new characters that are coming, you're like, well, who the fuck's that? Who cares? Like, why are we doing this? So that could be a problem. Second one, again, this kind of just follows up with the fatigue and oversaturation. General audiences are not familiar with a lot of the characters. So again, there's a lot of familiar faces that started with the Marvel Universe, but then as we've gone on, it's kind of broken off into these sublets of characters that we just are not familiar with and probably don't even care about. Another thing that happens, and this is mainly from the perspective of the ones that are failing. So poorly written scripts, lazy plot lines, like they're just not putting as much effort into it as they were like in phase one. So that's part of it. Agendas and narratives. So basically what kind of happens now with some of these TV series and movies is that the studios are basically settling for identity politics rather than quality storytelling. And, you know, if you want to use the term woke, you can, but the reality is it's okay to be inclusive and diverse with your cast and your plot lines and stuff. But when you're making that the priority and you're losing touch with the story itself and making a quality, entertaining film, because that's what it should be about. It shouldn't be about your political narrative. It should be about the actual entertainment value you're getting out of it. So that's a part of it. And then there's some, like, this wouldn't be for me because, like I said, I'm not a diehard comic book fan, but for some people that are into the comics, it's the accuracy of the actual comics itself. Now, generally, a lot of times when it comes to transforming, no matter what, like if you're going like book to, you know, movie or even comic book to movie, it's not always going to be 100% accurate. But I think some people get very frustrated when a studio strays so far off the reservation that, like, it no longer resembles the actual character that was written in the comics. So that's a part of it. Now, for some of like, I have a list of stuff right now of stuff that I have seen, and, you know, some stuff that I have yet to see. Now, the first three that I'm going to name, or actually, first 3 out of 4 movies I'm going to name that I'm going to talk about that I think are problematic, but again, 3 of them I haven't seen yet, but like just judging by people I know who are big into the Marvel Universe and the general consensus from critics and the audiences are very bad. Now, the one that I did kind of like, mainly for the ending with Vulture, was Morbius. You can kind of go back and forth about the CGI part of it, but if you're going to make a vampire movie that has speed, it's really the only way you're going to do it. So I didn't really have a problem with Morbius. In fact, I thought Jared Leto did a pretty good job with that character, and much better than the Suicide Squad shit. But even then, I have never gone back and watched it again. So I think I gave it like a 7 or 8 out of 10 when I saw it in the theater. And I was really bored. Trust me, there wasn't much out at the time, but I came out okay with it. Like I said, the ending with the cameo of Vulture with Michael Keaton was awesome. I like that tie-in. Now the next 3 movies I have not yet seen. Most of the consensus is bad. And again, there's varying reasons. So I don't want people to get hung up on one thing or the other. There's varying reasons why people do not like these films. So one is Madam Web. It just came out not too long ago. It's getting crushed by both audiences and critics. Like, they're just destroying it. And the Marvels, of course, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, or whatever it is. Those films have really taken a lot of heat within the last 5 years. Probably the last 3 years. Those Marvels and Ant-Man haven't been out that long, so it's at least within the last 3 years. Now, people are going to say, well, why are you saying they're bad if you haven't seen them? Well, a couple things. I do trust some people that I know that enjoy this universe. Like, you know, I do trust their judgment. So that's part of it. The other part of it is whether or not I'm interested in those characters. So I'm one of those people that if you're making these movies and we have characters that I've never even heard of, I kind of find myself just not giving a shit. Like, I really don't. Now, here's a caveat to that. Like, a lot of people hated Captain Marvel. I didn't mind that movie at all. I think Neko and I didn't. We didn't like say it was the greatest movie ever, but we didn't really think it was as bad as people made it out to be. So if I say that, I haven't seen the Marvel, then I have no interest in it. It's not because I hated Captain Marvel. I didn't. Um, but I'll tie that into the Miss Marvel stuff. Miss Marvel, I thought was I think we watched 2 or 3 episodes of that series before we tuned out. And that reason for that was mainly because it's mainly designed for teenagers and kids. Like, it was more kiddie like. So when I'm watching the Marvels, universe right now, I'm trying to go with the more mature content. So I didn't really care about Miss Marvel in terms of, like, this young teenage girl discovering powers or getting the glove or whatever the fuck it was. So now you got the Marvels. And really, even though I didn't mind the Captain Marvel movie, I just the character is kind of bland, and I don't know if that's Brie Larson's fault or if it's just how they wrote it. Um, I don't care about Brie Larson's politics or the things she does off the screen. I think people make too much of a big deal about that. But her character is just not as interesting as a lot of the Phase 1 characters that we saw. So going in the Marvels, like, I have no interest in seeing this film now. If it comes to HBO Max, or same thing with Ant-Man and the Wasp, like, I will check it out eventually. Even Madam Web, if it comes to Max or whatever, I will check it out. But I'm not going to go spend money and rush out to see these films because I just don't have any real interest in it. Now, as far as the series that came out over the years for the Marvel Universe, I've already talked about Miss Marvel. Why we tuned that out. Iron Fist, Luke Cage, She-Hulk, Jessica Jones. These were all, like, series that, like, we tried getting into Jessica Jones. Like, Neko was actually familiar. Neko's actually more of a comic book nerd than I am, but she's even found herself kind of tuning out, even though she really loves the actress that played Jessica Jones. For me, I just, like, I knew it was tied in, but, like, I just lost interest. Like, it wasn't anything important to me at that point. I tried Iron Fist and Luke Cage, same thing. After episode or 2, I was just like, I don't get it. Not very interesting characters for me. I remember reacting to Secret Invasion. Like, I do like Samuel L. Jackson a lot. I like the character, Director Fury. So when I saw the trailer, even though I knew it wasn't so much about the Avengers and stuff, it was more about his plot line, storyline. I was pretty interested in that. Now, I never got around to watching it, but when I heard that it tanked, I'm like, oh boy, that's not a good sign. And people were giving reasons why. And I think, again, it falls under that the agenda and narrative agenda stuff that they're doing right now, instead of trying to concentrate on a good story. So obviously, we have to keep in mind, entertainment in general is very subjective. So people will go into that and say, I enjoyed Secret Invasion. I enjoyed all these other ones, but I'm not one of them. And then I heard Echo. I have not seen that either. Now, we don't have Disney Plus anymore, so I can't just jump in and watch stuff like that right now. But again, that's another one that got kind of crushed. Now, it's interesting because the main character, which I don't remember her character name, she was in Hawkeye. And I enjoyed the Hawkeye series. I thought that was good. Especially, of course, Yelena, played by Florence Pugh, who is Black Widow's sister. So I enjoyed that series a lot. But for whatever reason, Echo is just taking a big hit. And I don't know, again, if it's the identity politics taking a part in that or not. I've heard some rumors that it is. And I think that's where right now they're, with the Marvel Universe and Disney, they're kind of fucking up. Like, they're just spending too much time on trying to be like, the affirmative action thing. Like, we got to have this, we got to have this. But rather than have good storytelling and just get the best person for the part, they're worrying about all these other things that really shouldn't be worried about. Like, it's fine. Again, it's fine to be diverse and inclusive, but you can do it in a way that isn't going to overtake your storylines. So you have to be wary of that. And I think they're just concentrating too much on bullshit. And people go to a theater, they don't want to be worrying about real life politics. They just want to go eat popcorn, enjoy, and come out of it like forgetting about the real world for a couple hours. I know I do. I don't want to go into a movie and have to worry about people preaching to me about, this faction bad, these people are bad, white people bad, whatever. I don't need it. I just want to go have fun, watch big monsters, superheroes, whatever, fighting villains and stuff. Like, I don't want to worry about anything else. As far as stuff that I really liked, now phase 1, that's like Iron Man, Black Panther, Thor, Doctor Strange, all that stuff, like the phase 1 stuff, I've really enjoyed. Now, obviously, there's a movie here and there like Thor 2 or Iron Man 3 that I didn't care about too much, but for the most part, most of those movies I really enjoyed. As far as the series that I've enjoyed, Daredevil is good, but again, it's a character that I'm familiar with. Punisher was good. The Defenders, which is kind of like the small Avengers, where you got Jessica Jones and Punisher and all them together. Loki, I haven't seen the second season, but a lot of people say it's really good. WandaVision was good, surprisingly, considering the approach they took to it. I mentioned Hawkeye, and then Werewolf by Night, even though it wasn't like a full series, that 1 hour movie was fucking awesome. I really enjoyed that. I didn't even know they had a werewolf that was kind of like a Marvel hero in some way, or anti-hero. So, people be texting me. A series I thought were okay was Moon Knight, which was interesting. I do like the Egyptian mythology behind it, but didn't really find the characters very interesting. Like, even though they did a fine job, they weren't that interesting. So, but a part of that probably is because I don't know much about the history of that particular character. I was excited for Falcon and this Winter Soldier, mainly because I like Winter Soldier. I didn't know anything about him before the phase 1 stuff. But Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier is pretty cool. I like it. He does a really good job with it. So when he teamed up with the Falcon, which I thought was cool, I did like certain things about that season, but obviously they were also doing that identity politics thing throughout it and towards the end. Now it does open a door for I forget the guy's name that replaced Captain America, but that was kind of a cool subplot to the series. But again, if they just kind of avoided all the identity politics behind it, it probably would have been a lot better for me. Let's see, movies I'm looking forward to. Right now, Kraven the Hunter, it kind of speaks to me, animals and the ability to communicate with them. And I think Aaron Taylor has done a really good job. Like, when I first saw him in, it's kind of funny because I saw him in Kick-Ass and didn't even know who he was, but he did a good job there. But when Godzilla 14 came out, the character was kind of bland. So I'm like, ugh, it's kind of rough. But I saw him in a Bullet Train, and I didn't even recognize him. He was acting fucking amazing in that film. So, judging by the trailer I saw for Kraven the Hunter, looks fucking amazing. I really like the character. I like what the storyline is with that. Deadpool and Wolverine just did a trailer reaction of that. Looking forward to that. I love the crossover. These Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman going back and forth for the last few years, dissing each other and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of cool and funny, and I think eventually it's going to be a really good movie. They have another Blade coming out. I think, is Ali still the one playing Blade? I don't remember who they got replacing Snipes in that, but that reboot should be fun. As far as series that I have interest in, I don't know if they're going to be good or not, but just in general interest. Agatha, the witch from WandaVision. I forget the actress's name that plays her, but she's incredibly funny and incredibly great actress. But I look forward to that. Eyes of Wakanda. I didn't know anything about this. I don't know anything about it yet. I'm probably one of the few, like, someone told me, or I saw a comment, someone said Madam Web was better than Wakanda Forever, and I'm like, don't know about that, because Wakanda Forever actually ended up being my favorite movie a couple years ago. Was it a couple years ago? Yeah. So I'm just, I'm kind of surprised someone make that comment, but again, subjective, right? But I'm interested in that series. I'm curious what they're going to do with that. And then, of course, the other one is Daredevil Born Again. Now, there's some other series of movies coming out, but again, there's like a couple of Avenger movies for 2026 and 2027. Obviously, I don't know who it's all going to involve at that point because I know these things kind of change characters here and there. We already know we lost Iron Man, but one positive thing, and I think I'll hold off on that comment for a minute because I want to talk about one more bullet point that really isn't mine in terms of like the problem with the Marvel Universe, but because there's a Forbes article that was talking about some of the same things. The one thing they brought up was the multiverse is a problem with the Marvel's universe. Like they think the multiverse is a big problem. I disagree with this, but I'm gonna go through some of their points here in the article. I'll link the article in my description box if you want to read it for yourself. But one of the points they made was Into the Spider-Verse had already used the idea to introduce quirky new Spider-Man variants and emphasized that Spider-Man is more than Peter Parker. That's true. However, if you've watched Loki, and we know where that actually is the one that created the multiverse, that was part of like the end game where they went and split it up and changed things. Loki season 1 was another direct result of that. So we know there's different types of variants of Loki. So some of their arguments are made that like, with like Thanos, I'm gonna get to that in a minute. They're saying that, in fact, let's talk about it. So Marvel already made this mistake in Endgame, which saw a victorious Thanos killed at the beginning of the film, but sees the Avengers face off against his younger self via time travel. While Endgame was a very neat conclusion to this Infinity Saga, it wasn't quite as satisfying to see Thanos face off against a team he had no personal history with. Disagree. Furthermore, a screenshot from Endgame which sees Scarlet Witch tell Thanos that he took everything from her, only for him to reply, "I don't even know what you are, or who you are," excuse me, became a popular meme because of it, admittedly hilarious. But it also showed how underwhelming that moment was. Again, disagree. From a storytelling perspective, Thanos generally didn't know who she was because that version of him did not murder her lover, Vision. She was murdering a variant, a stranger. Funny they use that terminology for her. This person who wrote this is incredibly wrong here. I'm going to say why. One, Thanos did know who they were because in his world, Nebula was sharing information with present world Nebula. And so once he found out that information, he knew that the Avengers were trying to stop him. So he knew clearly who they are. Now, as far as like how things are playing out, he had to skip over certain things of getting the stones, like the things that he had done previously in Infinity War were skipped because now he knew he can just go find them. They would have the stones. But he knew they were the enemy. So obviously he didn't have like a long history of knowing them personally, but he never did anyway. Most of them he never met till the final battle of Infinity War. I think the only ones he really bumped into were Hulk, Thor, and Loki. I don't think he ever faced off with any of the other ones up until Infinity War. At least now, comic book wise, can't tell you. I don't know. But the information that Nebula had, which was an oversight by the current Avengers, gave him information that he needed to say, okay, these are the people trying to stop me from doing this. I got to go take care of this. So he did know who they were. And I felt it was satisfying because if you would follow the timeline of how Marvel has put out their series and movies, you would know the pain that Wanda was facing. WandaVision came out, sometime after Endgame, but it kind of closed that gap a little bit. So we knew the pain there. And Infinity War gave you that pain. Like he was there. He knew at that time, but like whether or not his younger self recognized that moment is of no consequence. To me, we already knew that as an audience. We knew the pain that she went through when Vision died. Not only because she had to kill him, but then fucking Thanos brought him back and then killed him again. So that was like a double whammy. and it was worse to see for her. So it was traumatic. So I don't know how someone comes out of that not satisfied. Like, it makes no sense to me. And I don't agree with that take at all. I think it's a hot take, bad take. Now, another bullet point that they make, I do agree with, is Marvel needs a stronger villain. So currently, the Quantumania or whatever it is from Ant-Man and the Wasp is Kang the Conqueror, which I think we were introduced him in Loki. And that's where, like, Doctor Strange and the multiverse and stuff, because I think they did it too. But Kang, I guess I never saw that film, obviously, but from what I read, Kang was kind of defeated pretty easily in that film. And compared to Thanos, it's like, wow, we're underwhelming, right? I agree. Like, so, but I didn't think about this initially, but until they brought it up in this article, which is the good point they made, was that Doctor Doom could actually be a much better baddie than Kang the Conqueror at this point. Even though Kang can do a lot of different things, I think we can kind of agree that Doctor Doom, one, is a little bit more accessible to the general public. More people know about him than they would Kang. Secondly, Doctor Doom thinks a lot like Thanos. He thinks he's the savior of the universe. So there's a lot going on more with Doctor Doom than there is with Kang, which at the same time, like, Doom has a lot of history of Spider-Man. And I know there's been a lot of gripes about Madam Web and how they kind of addressed the Spider-Man thing in that. Maybe if you ever watch Flick Snacks with Derek, he went and saw Madam Web the other day and he enjoyed it. So maybe he can give some clarity if he watches this about, like, whether or not he feels like Spider-Man was deemed irrelevant in that movie, or whether or not he has a chance to be a part of that particular series. But I don't even know if they're going to make another Madam Web movie if they struggled so much with this one. And again, this could be more of a disservice to the actresses involved. So I think back to, I was one of the few people, well, I won't say few, but, well, yeah, I would say few, because in 2016 when Ghostbusters came out, the reboot, it got a lot of hate, but a lot of hate for different reasons. A lot of hate that was unnecessary, especially towards the actresses. I wrote a review back then that I felt that the actresses weren't the problem. It was the shitty script they were given, and it was that they were basically a second fiddle to the original trio of Ghostbusters. So they couldn't get the original trio. So what they did was they just went and settled for these four women who are great actresses and comedians on their own right. But then they were basically handed a shit sandwich and said, "Hey, make it work, make it successful," and it didn't, and it came out terrible. And I could go into a lot more of detail about some of the other problems of that particular movie, but it had nothing to do with the actresses. So if Madam Web is bad, it may not even be because of the actresses. I don't know. Like, I haven't seen it. But if it's not the actresses, then what else is going on there? Because people are kind of really torn on this film in terms of, like, why it's so fucking bad. I don't know. I don't really know. But hearing that much bad feedback, I can't really find myself interested in going to see it. If everything was like a 90 plus on Rotten Tomatoes from both audience and critics, I'd say, oh, okay, I need to go check this out. Doesn't necessarily mean I would agree with it, but at least I would sit there and say, well, it looks like it's promising. That's how I see it. But right now it's just so bad. Like, and I'm more surprised from critics is, like, if it's a woke thing, generally critics are very positive about that. That's one of the things that I usually argue with critics on, is they love that identity politics shit, and I don't. So if they're bombing this movie, then what the fuck? Why? There has to be a reason behind it, because they're not the ones that usually trash it for those woke reasons, right? But yeah, I mean, Doctor Doom certainly would be a nice tie-in. I don't know how Deadpool 3 is going to work with the crossover with DC with the X-Men, but I've heard that rumor a long time ago that would happen at some point. like I said, there's a lot of other films on the way. Some just I don't recognize as far as like Thunderbolts. I don't know anything about that, but people seem generally excited about that. But again, we're kind of facing that same thing where maybe the general audience just doesn't care, and that could be a bad thing. So like if Thunderbolts ends up being good, that's great. But how many people are going to rush out to see it, especially when you have these other films right now that aren't living up to expectations for even diehard comic people. So uh it's very problematic for the universe right now, and it's and like I said, the contradiction for me is that I actually enjoy the fact that Marvel thought this out. They said to themselves, we're going to make this entire universe. This is why I wish they would do this with Godzilla, which they kind of have in a little ways. But the Godzilla franchise doesn't have the kind of financial backing that Marvel does. But I like the fact that Marvel's done this. But it does have its cons when they do it, because if you're not putting in the effort to have great storytelling, you're not going to keep people interested, and that's the problem. So even though people might still get kind of tired with all the Marvel oversaturation, if you were making strong movies, they probably would overlook that part of it and say, okay, but things are still good. But when it's like hit or miss, like I went to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with Neko last year, and that ended up number 2 on my best of 2023 list. But it's all part of that phase 1. So they somehow managed to excel with phase 1, but then from there it gets very sketchy. It's like very choppy. So I don't know like if they're going to be able to survive. Like they may end up having to scrap all these films if they can't get back on board to making quality films. Like, I mean, I don't know how much Madam Web has made. I'll have to look that up after we're done here, but Marvel's office, you can pick your poison what you want to blame it on, right? Like if people want to say, well, people just hate women, I think that's just such a lazy excuse. It really is. Even though the identity politics does play a factor, it's not like the only reason why people don't like these films. Like some of them are just written very bad. And, I think Derek mentioned that, Madam Web has some issues, but he thought it was like a good popcorn movie. So maybe it is. I don't know. But as someone like myself who isn't really familiar with the characters, I'm just not that motivated to go see it. I do like Spider-Man. I like Venom. Now, the Venom movies, haven't been as exciting to me as I thought they might be. I think they're okay. Um, but the Spider-Man films are great. I like them a lot. Tom Holland, I think, has done a masterful job with the character. But again, we got all these spinoffs and like, they're trying, but like you have to put the effort in. Like if you're just being lazy about it, that's going to hurt your product. And so going forward, um, they have all these things planned. I don't know if they're going to survive, because if you can't make money, dude, and you keep putting out shit and people aren't accepting it, it doesn't matter if like the small subset of people are saying it's a great movie. If they're not making money, they're not going to keep putting it out. They're just not going to do it. This is one thing that we kind of argue with the Godzilla franchise. Like, we say they have to make sure they put out quality work. And now, granted, some people were like, they're just going to do one more after King of the Monsters and they're done. Well, that's not the case, and I'm glad for that, because people still have a strong interest in Godzilla and that particular monsterverse. So, and as long as they like Empire, I don't know how it's going to play out. It could go really bad or it could be really good. But if it turns out to be really bad, that could be the death note for the monsterverse. Because again, you have to make sure you're putting out quality content to keep people interested in coming back. The good news for MonsterVerse is there's not as much oversaturation. Like we have Monarch, the Legacy and Monster series, and then the movies. Like there's like 4 or 5, excuse me, counting Skull Island. So you have these, which is good, but it's not oversaturated. So people can still relatively keep interest in the MonsterVerse as opposed to Marvel, which has like a gazillion different things. I saw like maybe 5 seasons of Agents of Shield. It was okay, but I find it's going to be difficult for people to stay into it because it doesn't really mention too much about the other Phase 1 characters. I mean, just in passing. Like we do have Agent was it Agent Cohen? I forget his name. A good actor. Good, he was great in the movies. But he's like one of the primary guys in that series. But that's the only reason why like Agent Carter probably could have been really good as a long running series, but that failed too because again, you're just taking one character who, despite being a good character in Winter Soldier and stuff, and the original Captain America, as a standalone, it struggles because it can't carry the weight that it needs to. And nobody really cares. Like she doesn't have superpowers, but she's a strong female character. But got to keep the interest, man. You got to keep people interested in these things. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for me on that. I think that I'll still be interested in Marvel, obviously, like going forward. I mean, I think Marvel's doing a. People will probably argue with me on this. I think they're still doing better than DC. And the reason why I say is that DC, unfortunately, they have no continuity with their actors. Like, so the actors change. So you kind of get used to, like, this is what I appreciate about the Nolan trilogy is that everybody is the same. You knew going in, you had this plan, and Nolan did it. And each of those movies are fantastic. Now, the Batman that came out with Robert Pattinson wasn't horrible. It was unique and had some nice things about it, but it wasn't as entertaining to me as the Nolan trilogy. The first Suicide Squad, Margot Robbie kills it as Harley Quinn, dude. I think she does an amazing fucking job with that. Deadshot's a cool character. I don't know much about the Suicide Squad going into this, right? Outside of Harley Quinn, I knew that from the Batman series way back, but Enchantress, I didn't know anything about. But the movie was just badly made. And from what I remember, the studio was going to go with like an R rating, which they should have just stood with. They should have stood with it, but something happened and they chopped it up and fucked it up. And I don't think we ever got like a director's cut of that, which would have been very interesting to see if it would have been better. But they fucked it up. But then when they did the Suicide Squad with Idris Elba, Margot Robbie and such, and John Cena, that was fucking great. And The Peacemaker is a great fucking series, dude, because it goes hard. It's a rated R series, doesn't hold back. I get it. A lot of this stuff is for kids because it's supposed to be for kids for comics, but sometimes adults need stuff too. So The Peacemaker is fucking amazing, straight up. John Cena actually really impressed. He's actually growing a lot as an actor, which is nice to see. So DC does some things right, but they also have like a lot of bombs too, which just crashes. So, but despite Marvel having their own failures, they still have a lot of quality content out there. It's just right now, it just all depends on if people are going to stay motivated and interested to keep going and checking out these series. And part of the problem now for me is, we moved away from cable to go with the Roku and the apps, the streaming apps, which has worked out nicely. But now that Netflix sets a standard in terms of like having your own standalone app, now you got HBO, Disney Plus, Hulu, and all this other stuff. And so, you have to pick your poison of what you're going to watch and keep and subscribe to. But after a while, if you have too many, it just gets as pricey as it would if you had straight cable, right? So having the a la carte is nice, so as long as you can afford it all. So what we do basically is like even for the NFL season, we'll have the NFL app during the football season and cancel. And then like we may go to Disney Plus at some point to try to catch up on some of the stuff unless it gets moved. I've noticed some things from the Marvel Universe showing up on Netflix. So maybe after time, it will look like Loki might pop up on Netflix and then I'll catch it there. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say on this. Like, I enjoy parts of it, but I understand it has a lot of problems, and I'd love to hear feedback from all of you on what you feel about it. Um, are you just totally done with it all? Uh, are you still enjoying it? Do you think that the writing's good or bad? Like, let me know what your thoughts on this is. Um, as far as upcoming content, I'm going to be doing two things, a couple of things coming up. I'm going to be doing a tarantula spotlight from I'm a hobbyist with tarantulas. If you haven't seen my video that I posted recently on my tour of my spider enclosures, but Kevin Lambert from the Entertainment Headquarters made a good recommendation for me to try to do more content with that. So I thought maybe doing spotlights on each of the species that I have, which I'll put together at some point and do a spotlight on my first one, which is the Mysore ornamental tarantula tree spider. So I'll be doing that soon, and then I'll try to get those out when I can of each of the ones I have. But yeah, I'll do that. And then my Lone Wolf with Dub series that I started a couple months ago. I gotta get back into that. I'm gonna be doing Anbach, the Tony Jaa film, and I'll be reviewing that. And once I do that, I'll get that up. Tomorrow, I will be doing trailer reactions with Mr. Tony the Dead. And I'm excited to do that. We have like 2, 4, 6, 7 trailers we're going to go through and react to, because none of us has seen them. And we'll give you our thoughts on that. But, I'm going to be doing some more content with Mr. Tony the Dead. Probably reaction stuff, but also maybe talk horror movies and stuff like that too. Just depends on, whatever we decide on. But, I want to become a little more involved with him going forward as well as keeping the collaborations I'm doing with the Entertainment Headquarters, Sci-Fi Century, Jedi Veil, such. I'll keep that going as well. In about an hour and a half, I'll actually be on guesting on Kevin Lambert's Entertainment Headquarters channel as we give our top 10 sci-fi films of the last 15 to 20 years. So you say, well, is that really going to be interesting? It should be for you. And trust me, it will be, because it won't include stuff like Aliens or Terminator or anything like that, because we're keeping it in the last few years. So that should make the list very interesting. I think that people are going to be very surprised and probably hate me for some of my picks. Especially, I have like a group of runner-ups that people would say should be in my top 10 that aren't. So I'm not trying to be edgy. I just got my favorites. It's all subjective. So yeah, be ready for that. Be looking for that. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. So yeah, thank you for the video, man. Thanks for the subscribes, the likes, and the support that you all give us. I'm hoping one day at some point we'll get monetized, so I can kind of shift away from my regular job and try to make more content here and, make some sort of income out of here. Maybe it won't only be enough. I might have to still do my other job, because some people still have to do that, even if they're YouTube, getting paid by that. But ultimately, my goal is to try to find a way to get monetized. But again, most of this is because I love doing it. I love talking to you all. I love talking about all the entertainment stuff, music, horror, kaiju stuff, superhero stuff, talking about my tarantulas, sports at times. So yeah, man, just if you enjoy the channel, man, subscribe. It all helps with the algorithm and the likes and stuff like that. So I appreciate all the support you guys can give us. Yeah, thanks. And I hope you guys come by. It will be a live thing with Kevin Lambert on the Entertainment Headquarters. So I think we are doing that live. So I know Mr. Tony and Dad and I are doing it live tomorrow. So please stop by. Come hang out, talk to us. Got questions for me or him? Do it. We're all game, dude. We're just going to hang out and do some trailer reactions and stuff. So until later this afternoon, Mr. Lambert and I are going to do this top 10. So if you want to come by, tell us that our picks are shit, or if you love our picks, then come by and tell us, man. It's all about having fun with it all, right? All right. Thank you for tuning in to the Metal Time Radio podcast. I am DJ Anubis. See ya the fuck later.